I get asked about Airbnb arbitrage constantly. People who have never heard about it, people who have been sitting on the idea for 2 years and still haven't started, and people who tried it and want to know why it didn't work. So I figured, let me just answer everything in one video. My name is Kevin Leong. I run 186 Airbnb units across multiple states. I built that in under 3 years without owning a single property. These are 10 questions I get asked the most, and we're going to get to the big one. Is this still actually worth it in 2026, or is it already played out? Stick around for that one. Let's get into it. Question 1. What exactly is Airbnb arbitrage, and how does it work without owning property? Airbnb arbitrage is actually pretty simple once you understand it. You lease a property from a landlord just like a normal tenant would, but the difference is your lease is under your LLC. It is a corporate lease, and inside that lease, you have permission to re-rent that property on booking platforms like Airbnb for short-term stay. You're not buying the property. No down payment, no mortgage, no bank approval needed for the property. You just sign a lease, furnish the place, and rent out for a higher nightly or monthly rate than your rent. If your rent is $2,000 a month and you're generating $5,000 in revenue, after your operating costs like utilities, cleaning, and supplies, you keep the difference. That spread is your profit. Now, one thing I want to clear up because people get confused. This is not illegal subletting. You are not sneaking around behind a landlord's back. The landlord knows, they agree to it, and it is written into the lease. We are transparent about everything from the very first conversation with them. And here's why landlords actually like working with us. Think about it from their side. We cannot rent out a dirty, worn out unit and expect 5-star reviews. So we have to maintain these properties at a very high level. We have a financial incentive to take care of the place, and they know that. So now that you know what the model actually is, the next question almost everyone has is, how much does it actually cost to get started? It really depends on the property type. So let me just break it down. For a studio apartment, you're looking at roughly $4,000 to $5,000 all in for furniture and labor. A 1-bedroom is going to run you around $6,000 to $7,000. A 2-bedroom apartment maybe $8,000 to $9,000. Houses are a bigger investment. A 3-bedroom house can run anywhere from $15,000 to $20,000, depending on how you set it up and what you buy. A 4-bedroom can go from $20,000 up to $30,000 or more if you're adding game rooms, extra beds, or amenities that would make the property a top performer. On top of furniture, you also have your move-in costs for apartments. That's usually a security deposit around $500, sometimes an application or admin fee, and depending on the deal, possibly your first month's rent. For houses, plan on your first month's rent plus a security deposit. If you want to start for less, this is how. Buying furniture from other operators who are selling their setup is a great option. Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist works as well. Just make sure whenever you buy, it's actually in good condition, because beat up furniture will hurt your reviews and your revenue. Some people ask about furnished properties or furniture rental companies. I generally do not recommend either. Furnished properties usually have random pieces that do not go well together and look outdated. Furniture rentals seem cheaper up front, but you end up paying more over time. Bottom line, budget $5,000 to $10,000 for your first apartment and $15,000 to $25,000 for a house. That's a realistic number if you are doing it right. Now you know what it costs, but the question I get right after almost every time is, will a landlord actually let me do this? Let's talk about that. Yes, landlords really do allow this. Not every landlord will, and that is okay. The ones who say no are usually just not familiar with the concept. One thing to know is that we never go to a landlord and say we want to do Airbnb. We pitch it as corporate housing or corporate leasing. That is what it is. We just happen to use Airbnb as one of the booking platforms. That framing alone makes a big difference in how landlords receive it. Landlords who understand the model quickly see why it works in their favor. We clean the property 2 to 3 times a week. We fix guest damages out of our own pocket. We have to keep the place looking great because a bad looking unit hurts our revenue, and normal tenant is not doing any of that. And the big thing landlords care about the most is stability. They are tired of vacancies, they are tired of turnovers, and they are tired of having to remarket their property every single year. When you come in and say you want a long-term lease and you're going to take care of the property, that alone gets their attention. My approach is very straightforward. I'm not trying to do a hard sales pitch. I just come in calm and genuine and explain what I do. Something like, this is my company, this is how many units I manage, I work with a lot of landlords, and everyone's happy with the partnership. I think this could be a really good opportunity for the both of us. It is a two-way street. Landlords can hear over the phone whether you're a genuine or just trying to sell them on something. I think that calm, honest approach works way better than any cold outreach script. Find the right landlord, explain the model clearly, and more often than not, they're open to it. So landlords are on board when you approach it the right way. Now, for a question a lot of people with a 9 to 5 are thinking, can you actually run this while working full time? Yes, absolutely. Almost all my students start this while still working a full-time job. This is how I recommend starting. The reason it works is automation. If you set up your tech stack correctly and you are detailed with your house rules and check instructions, the software handles about 9% of the operation on its own. The 2 main tools you need starting out are a property management system and a dynamic pricing tool. A property management system, or PMS, is a software like Guesty. It puts all your listings on one dashboard, prevents double bookings, automates your guest messages, and notifies your cleaners automatically when a guest checks out. For pricing, I use PriceLab. It adjusts your nightly rate based on supply and demand in your market automatically. You set it and it runs in the background. If you're just starting with 1 or 2 units, those 2 tools are all you need. Day to day, the main thing to keep an eye on is check-ins, and checkouts. Make sure your guests are settled and the unit is ready. Outside of that, when things are running smoothly, it's pretty hands-off. As your portfolio grows, that is when you bring on a virtual assistant to monitor your inbox and handle guest messaging. But in the beginning, the software handles it. The operation side is more manageable than most people think. Now let's talk about the numbers. How much does one unit actually make and how long does it take to break even? It depends on the property type, so let me just break it down simply. For studios, you are realistically looking at $500 to $800 net per month. One bedroom apartment, you're aiming for around $1,000 net. Two bedrooms, around $1,500 net per month. Houses are where the numbers get bigger. A 3 to 5 bedroom house, you're generally targeting $2,000 to $3,000 net per month. Bigger homes in stronger markets with the right setup can do more, but that is a solid average to plan around. So the short answer is, most arbitrage properties net around $1,000 and $3,000 per month, depending on the size and market. Now, for break even, on average, you're looking for 6 to 8 months to get your startup costs back, but you can get there faster, sometimes 3 to 6 months, if you time the seasonality right and negotiate rent concessions going in. My first 5-unit deal in Milwaukee, I broke even in about 4.5 months. I got into the units in March, and by the end of July, I had my money back. Milwaukee's high season is the summer, just like most of the Midwest and East Coast markets. Getting in before the peak season was the driving factor. My fastest ever was a 30-unit apartment deal, where I broke even in 1.5 months. That is not normal, and I want to be clear about that. The reason it happened was a combination of things. I had rent concessions on half the units. I was going straight into high season. I bought used furniture from an existing operator, so my setup costs were about half of what they normally would be. Everything lined up perfectly on that one. Realistically, plan for 6 to 8 months and treat anything faster than that as a bonus. Now a big question. What actually happens when things slow down? Let's talk about slow season and what to do when bookings drop. Slow seasons are real and every market has them. That's just the nature of the business. The honest truth is, you should expect to make less money during slow season. The goal is to lose as little as possible, not to pretend it does not exist. If you know your market well, you know what your slow season looks like, how long it lasts, and how much to keep in reserves to cover it. You make the bulk for your money during the shoulder and high season. Slow season is just something you plan around ahead of time. There are a couple of things you can do to manage it. The first is setting up a seasonal pricing profile in your dynamic pricing software. And something like Price Labs, you can create a custom setting for your slow months so you are not manually adjusting your calendar every week. For example, during slow season, your base rate might automatically drop 10 to 20% and your weekly and monthly discounts might be set higher to encourage longer bookings. It's just a setting that runs in the background, so your pricing is already adjusted before the slow season even hits. The second is think about bookings ahead of time. You get someone to book your unit for long-term stays during the slow months. You're not constantly chasing last-minute stays for floor rate. One long booking covers a big chunk of that slow period. You're going to make less during those months, and that is fine. That's already baked into how you should be underwriting a property before you sign the lease. Slow season is not a surprise. It's something you see coming and prepare for. Slow seasons are manageable when you plan ahead. Now, let's talk about something that makes a lot of people nervous before they even start. Parties, damages, and bad guests. How do you manage those? This is one of the biggest fears people have before they start, and honestly, it is much more manageable than most people think. The key is screening hard from the beginning. On your listing, you set strict house rules. No parties, no large gatherings, age restrictions of 23 or 25 and up, and no local bookings. The last one alone filters out a lot of people who will cause problems. Every guest that books goes through a screening process. They have to submit their name, birthday, email, phone number, and address. They have to provide a valid government ID and take a selfie with it. And they have to sign a rental agreement before the booking is confirmed. Just having that process in place is enough to turn away most bad guests. People who want to throw parties do not want to deal with a host who has all that in place. I also send reminders before every check-in with the house rules and clear language about fines for violations or damages. Setting those expectations up front make a big difference. In my experience, I never had an actual party at any of my units. I have had some loud guests here and there, but nothing destructive. That's because the screening process does its job. For damages, Airbnb has air cover, which will cover most claims as long as you document everything properly with photos and videos. I also recommend having an external damage waiver as a backup, just in case air cover does not cover the full amount. Set your standards high from the start, and the right guests will find you. Now, let's get into one of the most common reasons people do not start in the first place. Why do most people actually fail at this, even when the model works? The model itself is simple. You rent a property, put on Airbnb, and make the difference. Most people understand that part. Where they fail is in everything that comes after. The biggest reason I see people fail is they do not know how to underwrite properly. They sign deals that were never going to make money in the first place. Wrong location, rent too high, market too weak, and once you sign that lease, you are locked in. Underwriting is is everything, and most people skip over it or do not know how to do it correctly. From there, they think any design, any pricing, and any location will just work out. It does not. Everything has to work together. You need the right property in the right location. Set up the right way, price correctly for your market. If one of those things is off, it affects everything else. A lot of people just throw together random furniture or go as cheap as possible thinking it does not matter, but it does. Your photos, your design, how your unit looks directly impact how often you get booked and at what price. Then there's the operation side. People learn everything from YouTube, Google, and AI, which can help, but they end up guessing through every situation instead of actually knowing what to do. They do not know how to handle guests, how to problem solve when something goes wrong, or how to handle the day-to-day properly. The model works. The people who fail are usually the ones who don't understand the concept was enough without putting in the work to actually learn how to execute it. Execution is everything. Now, a question a lot of people worry about before they even get started is Airbnb arbitrage actually legal? Yes, Airbnb arbitrage is legal. There are thousands of hosts doing this across the country and internationally. In my portfolio alone, I have 186 active units and I have set up over 220 total. But here are two things you need to have in order to operate legally. The first is permission from your landlord in writing. That means it's either in your lease or an assigned addendum. As long as that is documented, you are covered on the landlord side. The second is following the regulations in the city where you want to operate. A landlord saying yes does not automatically mean the city allows it. Every city is different. Some have strict short-term rules, some have very few. The easiest way to find out is just Google the city name and short-term rental regulations. The information is almost always on the city's website. If you have questions, call or email the office directly. In my experience, they are easy to work with and happy to answer questions. Most people see regulations and think it's a bad market. I think the opposite. Most regulations mean less competition and stronger demand. A higher barrier to entry is usually a good sign. Do your research, get everything in writing, follow the local rules, and you'll be just fine. We saved the biggest question for last. Is Airbnb arbitrage still actually worth it in 2026, or is it already played out? It still works, and I'll tell you exactly why. Airbnb posted $2.7 billion in Q1 2026 revenue, up 18% year over year. The global short-term rental market is projected to go from 149 billion to 362 billion by 2033. While hotel demand dropped last year, STR demand grew 6%. The industry is growing, not dying. Now, I hear people say it's oversaturated or too late. In my experience, the people saying that either never really did it or they did it wrong. If the market was truly dead, people would not be making money in it every single day in markets all across the country, but they are. What is true is that the days of throwing up a listing with cheap furniture and expecting it to print money are over. That era is done. But if you know how to underwrite the deal, set up the unit properly, price it correctly, and operate it well, there's still a lot of room to win. There are a lot of bad hosts out there, and that creates opportunity for people willing to do it the right way. The barrier to entry is also still very low compared to almost any other real estate strategy. You get into your first unit for $5,000 to $10,000. A lot of people are using 0% interest business credit cards to get started and to pay back within the year. Is there more competition than 5 years ago? Yes, but that's true of every business that works. The opportunity is real. You just have to know what you are doing. Alright, that's all 10. Hopefully that cleared up whatever brought you here. If this helped, hit subscribe. I create videos on how this business actually works, the real numbers, the mistakes, and what's actually working right now. Drop a comment with whatever question I didn't cover, or just tell me which one hit differently for you. And if you want to talk through your situation directly, find me on Instagram at KevinLeong_BNB. DM me and I'll respond. Thanks for watching.